here back with a quick astrology update. This will be another one for my celebrity series, but it's more of a historical figure rather than really a celebrity. So I'm going to mix some of them in with my readings as well. This is just going to be really chill. I haven't filmed a video in a while because I've had weddings, like my best friend's wedding, my wedding, and obviously being a mom and looking for new work. Obviously I'd really love to make astrology my main source of income. So if you are wanting a reading, definitely book in with me. I would really appreciate that. That would really help me out. But obviously why I'm still integrating, bringing up my astrology readings and business, I am looking for some new work, obviously. So that's kept me really busy. But I've had a little bit of free time and I really felt inspired to get back into this series and bring out some more just fun videos for you guys. So I thought I would do Charlie Chaplin or Charles Chaplin. So obviously the birth date they've got recorded for him, that is on astro.com, is the 16th of April 1889. Obviously you know, some of that stuff might be give or take and the time might not be completely accurate, but we're going by what he's got down here for London and his birth time that's on there. So if you go into astro.com, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this very well, but that's kind of what his chart looks like. But obviously I'm going to be reading from that anyway and kind of explaining what is on here. And funnily enough, it does link to another historical figure that was born within a few days of Charlie Chaplin. So they have very similar charts. So different rising signs, but placement wise very, very similar. This other individual, it was a Libra rising. So when I do his video, I will do a little bit of comparison, but it is someone that is very well known. It might be a bit controversial because I know this person was not very well liked, but I did want to kind of show you guys the comparison between two very similar charts and the impact they can have on the collective and on humanity on like a huge level. These two people were pretty prominent for their time. So I know they're from the 1800s, like late 1800s, but I think people will still know their names and understand who they are. One of them being Adolf Hitler, and obviously we've got Charles Chaplin. So they have two very, very similar charts. So, but this reading, if you've been sticking around for this long introduction, is for Charles or Charlie Chaplin. So from my understanding, obviously I was not born in the late 1800s, I was born in 1991, but this person was very well known for theatre, for his acting, for his just performance and his ability. Like he was quite amusing, very fantasy based, so a lot of that Piscean energy. So yeah, you can see his performances, and just I think from obviously what I know, he did a variety of different like comedies, acting, performances, just a lot of stuff. Like just love to put on a show. So very theatrical person. So let's have a chat about his chart, because I think he was a very famous person for making theatre, the arts and performance quite big, and a lot of people you know, really remember his name and really thought that the work that he did back then was quite amazing. So based on that, looking on astro.com, he would have a Scorpio rising, and this is at roughly almost 8 degrees, like roughly 8 degrees Scorpio rising, and he has his moon right there on that ascendant. So when you've got your moon in your first house on the ascendant, that makes you a very caring, nurturing person, very emotional, almost like you've got your emotions on your sleeve, like you wear your heart on your sleeve, like you can't really hide your emotions. They're pretty obvious. So these people are also very in tune with their environment, with nature, with everything that's around them. So they're very great at picking up on energetic vibes. They also might get drained quite easy if they're around you know, energy vampires. So that's one thing to note. Also, if someone has their moon in the first house, this person might have had their mother or a mother figure be a very big part of their life and create like help create their identity. So the mother or the mother figure and your identity can be very much linked together when the moon is in the first house. So basically you pick up a lot of characteristics from your mother figure or your mother. So they are very, very prominent in that person's life. So his mother would have been very, very influential on his personality and who he was as a person, the identity that he formed, because that first house is your identity, it's your self-branding, it's your physical body. So having the moon there obviously shows that. Also, it's in Scorpio. So when we think about Scorpio, it is fixed water. So it's a very emotional sign. When we think about Scorpios as well, we think about poison, we think about the venom, we think about the attack, we think about them hiding in the sand and like pouncing. You know, Scorpios are known for being quite spiteful when they're upset. They're known for being, you know, spiteful and venomous with their words, and hurtful. They're one of the people that really they study people quite well on a very deep psychological level, and they know how to hurt people with that because they're just so intuitive and they're so observational with that. They're also usually prone to experiencing or being exposed to a fair bit of things that are traumatic, that might be linked to criminal behaviors. They could be linked to sex. They can be linked to you know, endings and, you know, cycles of life and DEATH. I'm just going to be careful with all the stuff that I say because I don't want any of this to be censored, but all those sorts of really Scorpio 8th house topics. So you know, that's going to be a big part of his personality because he's a Scorpio rising. So being a Scorpio rising as well makes you quite powerful, quite magnetic, very alluring. Some people can be quite dark and attractive. There's just something mysterious and attractive about these type of people. It's usually their eyes and just like their piercing looks that kind of give off that they're a Scorpio rising. So I think people would have found Charlie Chaplin very mysterious, very alluring, very magnetic. There might have just been something about him that was just really intriguing that people just didn't know what it was about him, but there was just something special about him. But he definitely would have been a very secretive, private person as well. So yeah, that's his first house. His second house, he has Sagittarius, so that tells me that with money, he would have been very optimistic and very generous, very fun-loving with his money. He might have spent a lot of money on made money through traveling, through, I guess, business with people from foreign lands, anything to do with like foreign products could have made him a fair bit of money. But the biggest thing is that he would have been very generous because Sagittarius energy, they're kind of like, think about Santa Claus giving away gifts and being very generous and very jolly. That's kind of the vibe that I get from Sagittarius energy. So there's that. You also want to look for the ruler, which is obviously Jupiter, to give you a bit more information about where he spends his money and makes his money. So for him, his Jupiter is in the third house. If you're using whole signs, it's in the third house, and it's in Capricorn. So that tells me it's more about it would be more, third house is things like communication, teaching, like a newspaper. In our world, modern world, it's more like social media, but back in his day, it probably would have been like articles, magazines, more so newspapers, I think would have been more prominent. So, you know, like books, magazines, newspaper articles, like all those sorts of things. So that's all third house topics. It's also, third house is also your siblings and short distance travel, so like your neighborhood and that kind of thing. So he probably would have been quite good at being popular and quite good in his neighborhood in this close-knit area. So yeah, there's that. And the Capricorn side of it is he probably would have been really good with the authoritarian people in the community, the CEOs, the bosses, the big wealthy men. That would have been pretty easier for him to connect with and make money through them and through his communication. So I would say the way he kind of writes, and whether that's like, you know, scripts or stories, through his writing, through his communicating, storytelling, he would have been able to make a lot of money in that way. Yeah, so his third house, as I mentioned, being Capricorn and having Jupiter in there. So Jupiter's all about expansion, growth, and luck. So being in the third house, that it shows that he has a very expansive mind and that he has a lot to say and a lot to talk about. Being in Capricorn, that would make his communication style very precise, very calculated, very cautious. It's very traditional, and I would say he would probably command a lot of respect, and he would have been seen as probably an authoritarian person when he's communicating. So very, very much at the top of his game, because that's that Capricorn energy. The Capricorns, the bosses, the CEOs, they're authority. You know, they're people like, you know, the governments or, you know, the big business owners. They're very like, it's very hierarchical. So that's like the energy that he would kind of give off with his thoughts, with his communication and stuff like that. And then he has an Aquarius fourth house. So that would explain to me that potentially he had quite a unique upbringing, or maybe his family dynamics were more like friendships, or they might have been more estranged, like him and his family might not have been as close as what people thought, or there's just something very quirky and interesting and different and unique about his family. They might also be very intellectual and smart. That could be the other way that energy could come around, because Aquarius energy is also very intellectual, very scientific. And again, you want to look at Uranus, and Saturn, which are the more traditional and more modern rulers of that Aquarius house. So obviously Saturn's in Leo and it's up there near his MC. It's up near the 10th house. So in the 10th house, sorry. And then if you have a look for Uranus, that looks like it's in Libra, in his 12th house. So the Libra energy is like dealing with people behind the scenes and relationships there behind the scenes, and being quite unique there. And Saturn being in that 10th house, that Leo is the performer, it's the storyteller, it wants to be seen, it wants to shine. So again, it's no surprise with obviously what we spoke about with his career being a bit of a performer and being very artistic. Yeah, 10th house is your career and reputation, and then Saturn usually rules that 10th house, so it's quite comfortable there. But Saturn being in Leo in that 10th house, that's just about him being very authoritarian, about him being one of the best in his fields, in that performance field. He was very high regarded. It also shows that with hard work and dedication, that he could be in that career for a very long time, and that his work will be remembered. He will leave a very long legacy, because Saturn's about time, it's about foundations that are going to last, longevity. So it can be really hard, there's a lot of hard work, but once you get to where you're supposed to be, if you put in the effort, your career and your Leo legacy, that performance persona of his will be seen by the public for a very long time. So that's something quite important to kind of remember. And then he's got a Pisces 5th house, so very creative. Pisces energy is very dreamy, very flowy, very fantasy based. So that is that poetic, the storytelling, the creative side of him. And in the 5th house is, it's all about fun, creativity, romance, dating, risk-taking, it's pleasure. It's just all that childlike energy. So Pisces being there is quite beautiful. Again, you would want to look at Jupiter and Neptune to get a bit more information about those. But I don't want to keep you guys sitting here for too long. I just kind of wanted to go through these and give you a bit of a gist. But again, as I mentioned, Jupiter was in that 3rd house. So again, that's about his communication and storytelling. And then if you have a look at Neptune, that is in his Gemini 8th house. So it's just gone into that 8th house, and it's very close to Pluto. So Pluto is about transformation and rebirth and all that kind of stuff. The phoenix rising from the ashes, very powerful planet. And Neptune's the planet of like illusions and fantasies and spirituality and like that creativity and all that kind of stuff. So that's beautiful. And being in Gemini energy is the trickster. It's curious. It's very much about our logic and our thoughts. It's very flirty and fun and social. They're very charming. So that Neptune there really tells me that a lot of his, creativity comes through his voice, through talking, through storytelling, through networking, through being social. And being in the 8th house, this tells me that he probably was networking and knew a lot of the really wealthy people in the community. He could have been mixed in with a lot of bankers, people that do like the loans and investment, a lot of the wealthy people in the community. He probably knew a lot of people's secrets. He probably knew the right people that were quite powerful and rich and wealthy. So I think that tells you probably everything that you kind of need to know about that. His 6th house is ruled by Aries, and it's got Mercury and the Sun in there. So the 6th house is all about our health, our fitness, our day-to-day activities, our routine, our day-to-day work and our co-workers. So his Sun is how he shines. It's what people see about him. And it is the ruler of his 10th house, which is Leo. So that's showing a connection between his 10th house, so his career reputation, and his Aries 6th house, which is what he does every day, his daily routine, his day-to-day activities. And Aries energy, they're very pioneering. It's the entrepreneur. They're very much about risk-taking. They're very adventurous. They're very quick and fast, very bold. So I think, that gives you a lot of information about how he thinks with that Mercury, with his Mercury being placed there, and his Sun with how he shines. The Sun's your vitality, it's your ego, it's your confidence. So he would have been a very assertive person and very much a go-getter, taking action very quick, very reactive. So that would have been a huge part of his personality. He would have had some really big goals, a lot of energy, and he would have been like, go, go, go. He would have been working every day, all day, like really hard, really pushing himself, and that's how he'd shine, because he'd be working so hard. And that links him with his 10th house, and that's why he's leaving that legacy, and Saturn being up there in that 10th house as well. This person was a hard worker and very dedicated, and he was supposed to leave his mark on the world and leave a big legacy behind. So I think that's important. He's meant to be a trailblazer, a pioneer. So that's really interesting to see that in his chart. And then you've got his Taurus 7th house, so relationships for him. He really wanted stable relationships, very Taurian, loyal relationships. So in his relationships, he probably would have been quite stubborn. He would have really been quite focused on that stability and having people there that he really trusted, that were loyal and that he could rely on. And that's how he would be in relationships too. He has a Venus in that Taurus 7th house. So Venus is in rulership here in Taurus. So Venus rules Taurus. So that is a beautiful placement for his love and his relationships. And Venus also really loves to be in that 7th house, because traditionally Libra rules that 7th house and Venus rules Libra. So again, it's very comfortable in that 7th house. And it is conjunct Mars as well in Taurus. So Mars doesn't necessarily usually do overly that well in Taurus, because Taurus can be quite lazy, a little bit unmotivated. So Mars being there really can be hard, because you really need to find what's going to kind of push them and motivate them and get them to do something. That's the downside of that placement. However, being conjunct with Venus, that can be quite a nice placement. You've got the divine feminine and the divine masculine, both in Taurus together. That can be quite nice. So I think it really depends on other aspects. Like he had a trine from Jupiter up to that Venus and that Mars. So that Jupiter coming from his 3rd house and that Capricorn energy of his thoughts and writing, I think that's where that motivation comes from, having that trine and that Jupiter, like expansion and blessings of his thoughts. That definitely would have helped his relationships and that Taurian energy and helped give him motivation. The hardest thing is that Saturn in his 10th house is sending a square to that Venus and that Mars, which sends off some tension and challenges with his career, with his reputation. So it can be either maybe he was fearful of that limelight and that success potentially, or maybe it was just a bit of a burden having that much success. That could have been a bit of a burden for his relationships and how he takes action. Or he could have just had a lot of challenges with other people in authoritarian figures, other people that were on his level in the community and in through his work. There might have just been fallouts, conflicts and challenges there, because Mars is conflicts, anger and aggression, and Saturn is that fear, it's limitation, it's restriction, it's authoritarian. So that definitely could have been a bit of a challenge there. Again, obviously, you know, I don't know this person personally. I wasn't from his time. I haven't gone looking up, like, you know, all of the articles or anything like that about him. So I can't really tell you about his relationships as such because I haven't looked into them. I'm just telling you what I see in his chart and what's kind of there. But that energy can be expressed in a few different ways. Normally squares are challenges and obstacles. So that's why I'm explaining this expression as more of a negative one or a bit of a harder one. Yeah, and then we already spoke about the Gemini 8th house. He has a Cancer 9th house, and the North Node is in there. So the North Node is your destiny, it's your life purpose, it's what your life purpose is kind of pushing you towards, it's what you're kind of here to achieve. So his is in Cancer. Cancer is about the family, the home, it's about nurturing, it's about the mother. 9th house is about your beliefs, your higher education, it's about like philosophy, your spirituality, your religion. And it's about like travel and people, like foreigners, foreign lands, foreign people, and traveling, like all of that kind of falls in together. It's also about publishing, and it can be about legal events as well, like lawsuits, legal events, court cases. So having Cancer there could mean obviously like traveling to find a new home. So that could be an indicator because Cancer rules over the home and family. So when you see Cancer ruling the 9th house, that could be an indication of somebody that moves overseas and finds a home somewhere else from where they were born. It can be a sign that someone might study higher education around the home and family, or something to do with children and families. Or it can be an indicator, as I mentioned, with like religion and beliefs and spirituality. It could be about like that being a really big basis, like his home and family being a very big basis for what he believes in, about like spirituality, philosophy, religion. And on a final note, like Cancer ruling that 9th house, it could also be like lawsuits or legal events between him and family members. I don't know how that all plays out, but you know, there could have been legal events around a home or around family members, or lawsuits to some degree in that vicinity there. And so the North Node being here is really saying that he's there to be a teacher, to be a guru, to be like a coach and mentor to people. He's really here to like travel and explore and find out, you know, more about himself in a big picture, like very Sagittarian. I know it's the 9th house is in Cancer, but the 9th house is very much usually ruled by Sagittarius, which is about travel and exploration and a quest and, you know, that kind of energy. So you're tying that Cancer home and family energy in with that like 9th house coach, mentor, guru, explorer type energy. And yeah, I feel like he was here to teach people about those themes and that energy. So yeah, we've already spoken about the Leo 10th house. Again, that's his career, his reputation, his legacy. He was known as the performer, very artistic, he was a showman. And then he had a Virgo 11th house. So the 11th house is all about your friends, your community, the groups that you're a part of. It's about your audience. So his audience would have been very critical and analytical of him. His friends could have been like him, and his friendship groups could have been the same way. So he could have been very analytical and critical of his friends. Or they could have been very critical and analytical of him, same with his audience. But Virgo energy is also, you know, to be of service. So that shows that in his community and to his audience, he wanted to be of service. He wanted to give them exactly what they needed. He wanted to help them. He wanted to fix things. He wanted to be the problem solver. He would have paid great attention to detail with things. So there's that. Obviously, if you want more details, you'd look at where his Mercury is, and obviously that is in that Aries 6th house. So again, he's being of service to people, through the work and the daily duties and like that hard work that he does every day. That's Aries 6th house, so that energy that he puts in there, being a pioneer. And then finally he has that Libra 12th house, which I did mention about before. The 12th house is the house of transcendence, of spirituality, it's of isolation, withdrawal, it's about that institutions and our mental health, it's hidden enemies, all those sorts of things fall into that. 12th house is the house of self-undoing. So it's a very challenging house, it's usually very hidden to the native. Being that it's Libra, that kind of tells me that it's links into his relationships and his close one-on-one relationships and marriages and that sort of thing. So they could be the areas where he has, I guess, challenges with like hidden enemies. It can be the area of his life where he needs to retreat and withdraw a little bit, or it could be the area of his life that's a little bit hidden from him that he doesn't quite understand. Yeah, so the 12th house can be a little bit challenging, but there's all that. And he also has Uranus in there as well, which is like sudden changes and chaos and surprises. So the 12th house also links to our sleep as well. So having Uranus there could show challenges with sleep, or surprises, sudden times when he like just wakes up out of the blue during sleep. You know, maybe messages or ideas come to him through his sleep. Yeah, so there's like all of that mixes in there. But yeah, having Uranus and Libra in that 12th house would have been very interesting for him. But that's pretty much his house, and that's not looking at the aspects and everything like that. I haven't broken down all of that really in depth, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick half an hour quick snapshot. And this wasn't even quick, like that still took me a bit of time to kind of go in, but this was just trying to be a snapshot of like from the 1st house to the 12th house and kind of the placements, the planets placements that were in each house. So I hope you enjoyed it. That's a quick overview of like what I look at when I look at a chart. Obviously when I'm doing readings for people, I go a lot more in depth with aspects and give a lot more information because there's so much to it. There's so much analyzing that needs to be done. But as you can just see in half an hour, like I just broke down those 12 houses and tried to explain him as a person based on his astrology from what I could see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you so much for sticking around for the half an hour that you guys have been here. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like, give me a thumbs up so that I know that you enjoyed it and I can keep bringing out more content. And please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I promise I'm going to be bringing out a lot more regularly, especially now that my little boy is about 8 months old and I've got some more free time on my hands. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying getting back into the astrology videos, so I'm hoping I can bring some more of these out for you a lot more regularly. So thanks for tuning in, guys.